And welcome back to Two Steps Ahead podcast. I'm Son Edom, alongside somebody whom we might get a wardrobe malfunction.
Maybe. I'm Tara Hoke-Shiro. Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey, so in the past we've talked about Ohio State.
Oh.
And the national championship game. And now we're talking about something that occurred not too long ago, and that's the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes.
Okay, so it was Shakira and JLo and others that performed. Now, again, the infamous one, in case you don't remember, the most infamous one was when Janet Jackson's boob popped out.
Accidentally on purpose.
Yes, accidentally on purpose. Justin Timberlake ripped off her top, and the world went nuts. We did not have that.
Right.
But we did get Shakira's tongue thing, whatever that was. Which was funny because I knew right away that'd become the next GIF or meme or whatever,
right.
And sure enough,
it is. Yes.
Yeah. So they came out and performed, and it was in Miami, which was I don't know if that was the reason why they were performing there, because oftentimes depending on where it's at, you might get like local people to perform. You know. Right. So when it comes to LA, it'll be interesting to see who comes to LA. But I'll let you start with your thoughts on the halftime show as we kick off this episode.
You're going to let me start.
Two Steps Ahead. Well, I'll tell you this. Well, go ahead.
So let's just say that there's a controversy. Let's just start it off that way.
Okay.
So my understanding of this, I had flown to Dallas actually for a very quick 24-hour turnaround. So by the time we landed on Sunday, the game was at halftime. So we were in the Uber during halftime, so we didn't see it. By the time we got to the sports bar, it was second quarter, and we happened to find a place where there was a bunch of Chiefs fans, so that was fun because they were all excited. And then I started hearing this talk about the halftime show. I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? And then at the airport, people were talking about it. On the airplane, people were talking. And I kept hearing these snippets of whether or not it was appropriate, what was going on. So then Monday, I guess, I pulled it up on YouTube and I was like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about.
So what were they talking about? What was the buzz?
So there seems to be this back and forth about the demoralizing of America, that we are following into we're morally, sinking, and that we're, in trouble. So there's the conservative side who's saying that it was too sexy, too over the top, too pornographic, and then the other side saying, I don't understand what the big deal is, and I don't know why I'm supposed to not like this. I even asked my hairdresser when I went and had my hair done yesterday, I said, what did you think of it? Now, she's a Christian woman, a little bit more on the liberal side, but she said, I come from a dance background. I thought it was art, and I don't understand why I wasn't supposed to like it. So I said, I was looking at the Super Bowl show not during the game and not fresh. I was looking at it through the eyes of, okay, what's the controversy? So that may have tainted my viewing perspective a little. So because I was searching for what was inappropriate. I was looking for something. I wanted to know what they were looking at.
It's the same concept about what are you listening to when the records play backwards, and someone implants that seed into you that this is what you're supposed to hear. So you're out looking for something.
I was. So initially, of course, JLo is super talented. Right. She's very entertaining. But then, so the black out, I was a little bit like the black outfit first.
Didn't she remind you of Madonna? Yeah. In that outfit? Like, wasn't there a showcase, like a performance or something where Madonna kind of wore something similar? Because when I saw that, the first thing I thought was, hey, Madonna wore that. Mm-hmm.
It's the Madonna-esque outfit, aura. Yeah, yes. Yeah. That type of outfit is Madonna-esque. So, but the thing that I had the problem with is that the way that her crotch was highlighted. So the black boots came all the way up to the top because she was hiding another costume underneath, right? She kept taking things off and there was more and more costumes underneath, which is pretty cool the way they do that. But the high boots, right, came all the way up, and then she had the middle part that came down, and then her crotch was completely highlighted and she had on a thong. To me, it kind of looked like pubic hair. Can I say that?
Wow. Was expecting that.
Right. But
That's some serious shit right there.
That was my thought. And I'm like, okay. Because my eye kept going right to her crotch. And then when she slid towards the camera and spread her legs.
Okay.
That's when I was like, whoa, okay, that's what they're talking about. Okay. That was my first thing. And so when I was talking about this to my hairdresser, she was saying, well, it's art. I come from dance. That's just the dance world. Like, I don't understand what the big deal is. And I said, I don't understand why, like, if she wouldn't have highlighted her crotch and if she wouldn't have spread her legs in front of the camera, it would not have diminished her show at all. She's uber talented and she's highly entertaining. I don't understand why we have to go to that level. Now, so then, then she was pulled. Obviously, she learned how to pole dance in her movie. She wanted to incorporate that. I'm just wondering, I don't know. What do you, I mean, you're a guy, so you probably, I don't know. What do you think?
I didn't look at it that way because, to be honest, after Shakira, she did her performance, which I thought she did a pretty good job. She looks 12.
Right.
First off, she's 43 and or something. And she looks 12. So I was like, is that really her? What's going on here?
Yeah.
But and her performance was fine, and I understand that. I understand the and it was interesting because I'll tell you my brief thing first, and then I'll tell you some feedback that I heard from some people, which I thought was kind of interesting. Okay. So I thought when the performances were going to start, the place I was watching it, they were like, hey, what do you think it's going to be like? And I said, it's probably going to be good. It's probably not going to be the best. It'll be all right. And I said, I know Shakira is going to outdo JLo, in my opinion, going into it. And I think that's what happened. It was good. The performances were good. They were entertaining. The production value was really good. And Shakira, I thought, really did a good job and
excellent.
Did better than JLo. And so I think that part of it is JLo. And this was a lot of stuff that I was watching on social media too, was the age. Age was a factor. There's all kinds of memes comparing, a 50-year-old back in the day vacuuming versus JLo on the pole. Or the Golden Girls, the one girl that's like 50 that's all like, grandma looking, and then JLo on the pole. So there was a lot of that going back and forth. So I think some of it might have to do with, a 50-year-old woman in good shape dancing on a pole, and people get excited about that because this is the new 50. This is what everyone's going towards. Everyone's going to be 50 one day, and they would rather be dancing on a pole than, being the grandma-looking thing from Golden Girls. And then plus, too, I just think that, JLo, I like her movies. I'm more of a fan of her as an actress than as song and performer. I know she does Jenny from the Block or whatever, but I'm more of a fan of her as an actress. So her music never really has done anything for me. So, and Shakira's music I like a lot better. So I think that's probably tainting my opinion too. But as far as the other stuff, I guess we're just getting to the point where we become immune to some of that thing. Because as you're describing it, at the time I was watching, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that would have been a little provocative, wouldn't it? In hindsight. Well, when I'm watching, I'm like, I didn't really think anything of it because I was distracted, though, by JLo's costume. Like you said, I'm like, hey, first off, that's Madonna. Second, what's she wearing underneath it? Yeah. So I thought the costuming was a little weird. That's why I thought Shakira did a lot better because her performance, her music, and everything.
And the red pops on the screen, and it's not, it just looks better.
But yeah, I didn't really get that. But it also reminded me, too, a little bit of, I think we did the wardrobe malfunction with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. And there's been other shows. There's been other halftime shows of college football games, championship games and things like that, all-star games, NBA, where people have done things, and I think we're just getting to the point where we become immune to some of this, and we kind of overlook it on TV, and we just look at the art of it. We look at the acting of it, or we looked at the dance choreography of it. Some people that I was watching with, they were like, what happened with Shakira's background dancers, they had one leg missing in the pants, and they're like, why would you do that? So they're talking about things like that. They're like criticizing or critiquing, I guess you could say, the costuming and stuff like that. But I thought that Shakira did a good job, JLo, and I really didn't think about Jennifer Lopez's spread eagle on TV because I guess maybe we were just consumed in conversation with everything else. But here's what I'll tell you. This is the interesting thing. So I have some friends from the Latin community. And so I asked them about it. Hey, what'd you guys think? Because they're showcasing, Latin American heritage with Shakira and JLo. And the first thing they said was that they liked it. They thought it was really good. They thought they did a good performance. They thought Shakira did better than JLo. But they also said, too, that, because I asked them about kind of the dancing and stuff, and that's just their culture.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is like Shakira, that dance that she does, the type of dancing she does, that's just her culture, and she's known for that. And she became a Spanish language singer first, and then transitioned to English.
Now, when I saw Shakira dancing, that's what came to my mind, that's Latin dance. I wasn't offended by it, or I didn't question it as like, okay, we're taking this too far. I saw it as a cultural Latin dance.
Even when she's rolling around on the ground too.
Yeah, I did. I took it as the Latin dance. But I didn't feel that way necessarily with JLo.
Because I think to be honest, I think she's a little bit more Americanized than what Shakira was. And so when she does certain things, it may not come off as well because she doesn't have that background like everyone thinks. And then two, it's just not her style, you know?
Right.
I mean, maybe it is, but you know, when you have Shakira go first and perform like she did, and dance like she does, and has the background dancers or backing dancers, yeah, I mean, it was an entertaining show. And then JLo comes on and it was like a little bit less enthusiastic. I mean, I don't know. I just thought Shakira could have been it, and that would have been it, and just have her do it. The one thing I thought was interesting, I thought they would have somebody that would be more Cuban influenced. Because Miami's a huge Cuban influence, but it wasn't. It's the other thing too that JLo gets a bad rap because she plays an Italian on TV or in the movies.
Right.
She's played a Puerto Rican. She's played a Mexican. She's played all different kinds. You can cast her in many different roles because of her looks. I think Sicilian maybe or something. Maybe that's Italian.
Yeah, she's very talented.
So I think that's another thing too, where when she tries to get something that's a little bit more Latin influenced, she gets a little bit less credit because she's such an Americanized person.
I think when how many years ago was the boobgate?
Wow, at least 10, maybe 15. Because on CBS, so it was probably like the mid 2000s, somewhere like that, maybe 2010, somewhere. So it's probably at least 10 years.
Yeah, so I remember at that time they were talking about the moral decline of America, and here we are 10 years later, and now I hear the same. Oh, we're falling into the moral abyss. It's they seem to whoever they are, they the authority, whoever that is,
the moral majority,
right? I mean, they got to know when they're hiring a lot of these artists, what they're bringing to the table. So I don't know that the producers or that they're necessarily shocked by this. And it seems that they enjoy the controversy because 10 years later, we're still having talks about morality and what we should be showing during the halftime show. So it makes me wonder what their end game is when they're producing these shows. Is it because they rehearse? They know ahead of time what's going to happen because the cameras have to be set and they have to be blocked. They have to go through that whole thing. So there's a lot of rehearsal. So they know what's going to happen, right? So, and they're allowing it. And I'm just wondering if they want if they feel that the controversy is better. So are they I'm wondering if they're putting the controversy higher than just the actual performance. Because didn't John Legend performed one year? Yeah. And there was no controversy about that, right? No one's talking about so maybe...
Well, remember last year, Maroon 5, they performed, and there was some controversy going into them. I forget what it was now that you mention it. But there was some controversy with Maroon 5, and the Super Bowl was like, no, he's still going to perform, But then also, I think, when you go back to the day, the moral decline of America started with Elvis's hips.
Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, that was the first ultimate show that had controversy. Was Elvis gets up there on the Ed Sullivan Show or wherever he was, and he starts shaking his hips.
Yes.
And then it was the Doors, Jim Morrison and their song.
Right. The Beatles,
maybe it was Jim Morrison on one of those shows. Elvis is shaking his hips, and then it's the Doors. Jim Morrison. They didn't want him to say we're going to get much higher, and so he looks right into the camera and he overemphasizes it. So it's been something that's been going on through the ages where people get on camera and they try to get that shock value, and maybe JLo was trying for that shock value with her spread eagle. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little uncomfortable. I don't know why you'd want to do that. That's a little invasive,
It felt very, especially because, I was not, again, full disclosure, I was not watching in a room full of people where the TV was away from me, and it was like in a different perspective. I was watching on my phone. I was watching YouTube video on my phone, so it was literally this far away from my face, and her coming right at I was like, whoa, like it made me jump.
Wow.
So I don't know if
Could you imagine if that was in 3D?
Exactly, right? I don't know if I would have had that react the same. Yeah. I probably would have still thought that it was because it felt because of the way that the costume was shaped and she spread her legs. Seriously, I was just like, it was so distracting and so in your face when she came towards the camera and just like spread her legs and like shoved her crotch like right in the camera. So
now you haven't seen that new movie Hustle, have you?
Not yet, but she learned.
Maybe it's from
how to pole dance, and I know that she was.
Maybe she was taking some of her choreography from the movie because I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. I've heard that it's not, the lady that she was portraying is not happy with it because it's not quite accurate. But as far as artistic value, I've heard that it was a good representation. But yeah, she learned how to pole dance in that movie, and she learned some of those moves. Not that she didn't know them before, because she's a good dancer. Right. She has a dance background. So I just kind of think that I'm going to take a little bit of a different perspective and ask what you think about this. If we go back up to the 10,000 foot level just for a second, I think that we, in our society, there are companies, there are entertainers, there are products that the bottom line is that we want to sell whatever it is that we're selling, right? And it doesn't matter if people are, whether it's food, whether it's music, whether it's entertainment. We want to sell what we want to sell, and it doesn't matter how it affects people, because like if someone is having a problem with pornography, or if someone is subject to gun violence, if someone is has mental illness or whatever, we kind of just do things for our own value, and we don't really pay attention to how it's affecting our society at large. We're not team players. In other words, we're very individualistic in our society. So I think when we have Super Bowl shows like this, I think they fall into that mentality of we're here to entertain, and if people don't like it, too bad, which I think is sad that we're not, because like I said, if she wouldn't have done that and she could have toned it down, it would not have taken away from the value from her show at all. So I don't understand why we have to go to that place when it's so like if you want to buy tickets and go to her show, fine. But if we're all coming together and there's all these different groups in the audience, why do we have to go? I don't understand why we have to go to that place and get everybody in an uproar.
Well, the other thing too, think about it. Okay, Paul McCartney, he performed. Bands such as Aerosmith, I think Bon Jovi years ago. Like I said, John Legend. So you have artists, male artists that perform, and they don't do anything provocative or sexual.
Right.
So again, why is it going back to that the women have to perform this way would be one question.
And why do they feel that they have to perform? Because like you said, she's, if we take in the age factor, is she still trying to prove that, hey, at 50, we've still got it?
Oh, Jane Fonda's been doing that, and she's, like 100?
She still looks really good. I've met her in person, actually, and she's beautiful.
Yeah, so I mean, we know that the future is there. But the other thing, too, is like, first off, when people perform at the Super Bowl, you get a big jump in sales or popularity. So people are going to buy your music. They're going to go out and, I remember that song. I'm going to buy the, download now, the album and things like that. So you do get a jump. So maybe they're looking at, first off, I got to impress so that I can get the maximum, because they don't get paid for these performances. The only thing, no, they don't get paid to perform at the Super Bowl.
Wow.
The only thing they get paid for, or they get expenses covered, but they do not get paid. There's no performance fee, so it's free. So first off, you're benefiting performing because you get a big boost in your popularity afterwards. So you don't get paid, but you get the publicity. So then two, what are you going to do with that publicity? And so that's then the decision what you're going to do. So I guess, when you compare the two, Shakira versus JLo, Shakira did some things, rolling on the ground, this, that, and so did JLo. But I don't know, it just thinks that Shakira was able to pull it off better because she has more of that background and that Latin dance. And
I think that you're right, because there was another part in JLo's performance where she turned around and bent over to the camera and putting her, her butt right in the camera.
She does have a butt.
She does, but again, I'm looking at it as there are so many, like, I've been to the porn convention, I've been to the strip clubs, talking to these people. I've talked to people who have been sexually abused. There was one story where a guy was telling me that he's the I think he's the grandfather of this little girl. She was probably 6 or 7 years old, and he was watching her. He was taking care of her because she had been sexually abused by the father, I think. And so he said that she came out into the room and pulled her pants down and bent over. And she says, "Here, Grampy," like, because she just thought that that was what she was supposed to do.
Yep.
And so when I see people bend over like that, it's not, to me, that is not artistic value. To me, that is a sexual come get me type of, move. That's the part that I don't understand, why we have to go to those specific places. I don't look at, and other people might hear me saying this, I'm like, "Oh, brother, it's just a dance. Like, what is the big deal?" But we take our experiences with us, and that's what I immediately think of when I see women on camera bending over to say, "This is what I have to offer. Come take it." I immediately go to that story of the little girl who was trained that that's what a girl is supposed to do. She was abused by her father. I can't separate the two.
Right.
So now, does that mean that they shouldn't do the Super Bowl because there's one girl in California named Tara that is offended by that? I think that it's a bigger conversation with that, but that's where my mind goes. Right. And a lot of the talk that I heard on the airplane was, I don't understand. Even my hairdresser, like, I don't understand why I'm supposed to be offended. I don't understand why I'm not supposed to like this. Like, it was aesthetically pleasing. There was a lot to the senses that were going on, and it was a lot to participate in. That's just my personal take. When I see images like that, I'm not looking at it as art. I'm looking at it as, porn. And so if you want to go and pay for that, fine. But why in a general, when the audience is virtually everybody, millions and millions of people are watching the Super Bowl, and all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, all different baggage that we bring to the table. Why do we have to do that in that type of an audience? I don't understand it.
Well, first off, I don't think people take into consideration, like the story that you told about sex trafficking and people that have been abused, when they're engaging in watching this. They're thinking, this is fun, this is entertaining, this is something that's going to be, good.
Right.
Because I've heard multiple stories too. I used to work at a talk station that we would bring people in, and there was this one charity ministry that was doing work with saving people in Moldova. I think it was Moldova, sex trafficking. And we would bring these women in, and they would tell their stories. And I've heard stories too of young girls that would be like 6, 7 years old, and they would be rescued out of these sex trafficking, prostitution houses. And that's what they do. Their new foster parents, so to speak, saying goodnight to them, and they're taking their clothes off. I'm like, what are you doing? Because that's what they're conditioned to do.
Exactly.
When there's a guy around, you take your clothes off. And so I don't think people really think about that, because one, I don't think they want to think about that, because it's highly depressing and will bring even the toughest of guys to tears when you hear these stories. I mean, it's horrific, the stories that we've heard. You talk about unseen things, unringing a bell. You can't unring a bell. Right. You can't unsee or unhear things that you hear with some of these stories. And so people want to push that to the back. So I don't think, people are too in tune with some of the sex trafficking and some of the horror stories that you might be accustomed to, that I might have heard because of the positions we've been in. So they just dismiss it. Two, they think of it as just art and fun, so they don't put that complete picture there, because it's not in that environment. It's kind of like the not in my backyard mentality. I want a cell phone tower, but I don't want it in my backyard because of all the negative stuff. I want the dancing and all the sexiness and stuff, but I don't want all the stuff that comes with it. And again, it goes back to kind of a little bit of hypocrisy from the standpoint that women want to be appreciated. We've talked about it, boobs or brains. And here you've got JLo dancing and being in your case, let's say provocative and sexual, and yet why could she have just had so much success, and could the show have been just as good without all that?
Right.
And so I guess that's just where we are in society. Like I said, when Elvis starts shaking his hips and Jim Morrison starts singing, we're going to get higher on TV, then you get Janet Jackson's boobs, and you get JLo's crotch.
Right. And you're right. People don't connect those dots, and they don't want to connect those dots, and would probably think that I'm silly for connecting those dots.
But see, you've experienced that. You've seen that. You can't. An abused person. Okay, it's like the abused puppy. When you rescue a puppy or a dog that's been abused, it's not going to automatically come to you. It's going to cower in the corner, and then you have to develop that love, and then eventually trust, and then eventually the dog's going to be the dog again. And so if you haven't experienced that, if you haven't been with somebody that has an abused spouse or an abused woman isn't going to automatically like fall in love with a guy. There's going to be all kinds of walls up.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you haven't been a part of that, or if you haven't made yourself aware of things like that, then you're not going to know. Right. And a lot of people don't want to know about that, so they don't even think about it. You know, you think about the Super Bowl in and of itself. You know, law enforcement ups the ante. And I think they even, you know, heighten the criminalization of prostitution because people fly in all over the world to go to the Super Bowl, and prostitution runs amok in these Super Bowl cities.
Prostitution is the highest. Sex slavery and prostitution is the highest in the Super Bowl cities. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing too, is when the Super Bowl comes around, I was thinking about that this weekend. I was like, wow, so many people are going to be sex trafficked this weekend, and so many women are going to be prostituted this weekend because it's Super Bowl weekend. Yep. People want to come in from out of town and just, have their fling. And so so then when we see something like this on TV, you know, during the halftime show, it's almost saying like it's okay to behave that way on stage because it's quote unquote safe. Nobody's getting hurt. It looks, it's pretty, it's glittery, it's sexy. It comes with the hair machine, you know, the hair's blowing, the music, the fireworks. And so therefore it's quote unquote okay to do it in that setting. But it's the same movement. It's the same, that bending over is the same, like here I am, I'm available, come take me. It's the same move. It's the same act. It means the same thing. But somehow we think that it's okay if she's wearing, you know, sequins and glitter and has great hair and, you know, the wind machine and everything to go with it. It's okay. And I look at it as, and I know there are other, the people in the sex trafficking industry look at it's all the same thing. We can't separate it out into boxes. We can't
Society likes to do that.
We like to do that because we don't want to know about what is going on with the sex. I mean, there's more slaves today than there were, 100 years ago. There's sex slaves and labor slaves and all kinds of stuff that's going on right now that we just close our eyes to. There are thousands of women being sex trafficked just in California alone. So you're right. We don't want to think about that, but that's what I'm looking at it. I heard a lady on an airplane say, oh, there was this controversy online and I just commented, pull up your big lady britches and put your, whatever that saying is. And I looked at her and I thought, okay, here's one of those spammers. So I looked at her and I was like, okay, what kind of a person is saying this? And she was just normal. And I think she had no idea. She just wanted to comment and be a part of it. Like, oh, lady, you're just being too, stuffy, just move on. And that just told me that people were not really thinking about it. We just want to see it, enjoy it, and move on, and not go any deeper.
Well, we do live in an instant gratification world.
Yes.
And so everyone wants that instant gratification now, whatever it is.
Right.
Hungry, going to eat now.
Yep.
Sex, I want it now. Entertainment, entertain me now. If I'm going to tweet something, it's got to be 178 characters or whatever it is now, And, videos, TikTok's a minute, Instagram's a minute. Everything's now. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're in. But we also like to separate and escape because sometimes I think people will use entertainment and media as an escape. One of the things I tell my students, in case you don't know, I teach radio broadcasting at a community college in Pasadena. And one of the things I learned in radio that I pass on to my students is people will come to you as the escape from their problems. Mm-hmm. And so you can't bring your problems to the table sometimes, depending on your situation, but you can't, if it's a music show, people are going to come want to listen to music and feel good. So you can't bring your problems to the table because you're their escape from the problem.
True.
And so people like to have that. So when you look at a halftime show, and a lot of people were looking forward to this, I mean, the social media was lighting up when the halftime when the game clock hit 0 for halftime, people are like, here it comes. This is it. Everything. Pepsi's everywhere, and the fireworks go off, and boom, everybody's now ready for this.
Right.
So I think that people then separate, and they go right to entertainment mode and entertain me. I want to be entertained. I don't care about the rest of the world because I don't care about the Super Bowl anymore. This is it. Mm-hmm. I don't care about anything else because I just want to watch this. Mm-hmm. The other thing too it brings up is idolatry. Mm-hmm. Think about all the people that are sitting there, holding these, two gals up and these performers up, and just worshiping them.
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, they're great. They're talented. They're beautiful. They've got it going on. but they're just people too that happen to be talented in certain ways that maybe I'm not talented. That doesn't mean that they're any better or any worse than I am or you are or anybody else. They just happen to have a talent that they're able to use on a big stage like the Super Bowl, or in their recording studios, or on TV with movies and stuff. But people just idolize people so much, and sometimes I'm guilty of that too. There's a lot of people I'm a fan of, and I'm like, oh, there's a new album coming, I can't wait to hear it, or there's a concert coming to town, I want to go. But it also puts us, why do we put these people on pedestals? And I think that's the other thing. When you have a JLo or a Shakira on a pedestal, they can do no wrong. Elvis can do no wrong. Harvey Weinstein, all of Hollywood, can do no wrong because they're up on the pedestal. How dare they do anything wrong? Politicians can do no wrong, although I think everyone thinks politicians do everything wrong now. But you put people in these positions and they can't do no wrong because they're above it. When in actuality, everybody's just people.
And when they do something wrong, and we see that we don't want to see it, and so we push it away. We don't want to acknowledge it.
Athletes are a huge thing. How many times there's an athlete? How many times have we seen an athlete punch his girlfriend or wife on TV, on TMZ, and he's back in the league? How many times have we seen an athlete drunk drive, or driving drunk and back in the league? And how many times have we seen athletes brandish weapons and shoot somebody and they end up back in the league? So we put these people on a pedestal and we think they're above the fray, above the law, whatever, and they can do no wrong, and we accept the things that they do wrong as normal. When if you're a parent, you wouldn't accept that from your kid. If you're a teacher, you wouldn't accept that from your student. Hopefully nobody brings a gun to class. But the malfeasance is not accepted in other parts of society. But when you deal with superstars and performers, it's okay that they do wrong because we accept it.
That's exactly it. Like if someone was dancing that way in public, in a bar, like the whole room would be like, oh my gosh, look at that woman. The
bouncers would come in and
the bouncers would come in and get it right. But you do it on the stage at the Super Bowl in the halftime, then it's okay. So we have this double standard of when things are acceptable and when they're not.
And it's always going to be that way because, like I said, it's been there since the days of Elvis, and it's always going to be that way, if not getting even worse as the years go by, because I think society is accepting more and more. You just look at the airwaves and there's more profanity. I mean, hell, we talk about shit on here, and before you couldn't even say that anywhere. So we're accepting more and more of the moral decay, so to speak. I'm not saying we're in moral decay, but that concept in society, because we just get used to it. We get used to the fact that people push the envelope and they accept it and there's no ramifications for it. A government deregulates the FCC and the airwaves, and then we have the internet, and then you got Howard Stern, and then Howard Stern goes to satellite, and then it's just complete debauchery. So that's just how society is, and I think that's how society is going to go because it's just acceptable. The other thing too that I find fascinating is people want to fit in. People want to be a part of something. It's hard to be solo. It's hard to have a conviction and stand on a conviction and be the only one in the room with that conviction. We don't talk politics in my classes because it's not the place for it. But every time it comes up, I know there's always a conservative student or two that's not saying anything because they don't want to be ostracized by the rest of the class and outed, so to speak, because most everybody is going to be a liberal. And so people don't want to stand alone. So when things like a halftime performance goes, like it does, or an artist comes out and does something, a majority of the people are going to be, or maybe a minority of the people are going to be like, this is okay. And then the majority jumps in and says, oh yeah, it's okay, because they want to fit in like everybody else. Right.
We don't want to stand out and say, oh, that was not acceptable, because then right away people start saying, oh, what is wrong with you? Why are you so blind? Why can't you just get with the times? Why are you so, sexually oppressed? And I think that you're right. I think that it's hard to stand up and say, no, this is not, this is just not okay. And something else that I find interesting along this same topic of sex and what is okay and what is not. We've been talking a lot about the pineapples on this show.
Love the pineapples. Okay, you got to tell a story for people that might not know the pineapple.
So I live in Santa Clarita. I have this friend who is divorced. She's my age, so she's around 50. She is now in the dating scene, and she's been telling me that there is a huge population of swingers in Santa Clarita. So then I hear rumors, I don't know if it's true or not, but if you go to certain restaurants in Santa Clarita, if you put your keys on the corner of the table, that's a sign that you're a swinger and that you want to meet other swingers. I've heard that if you go grocery shopping and you put a pineapple upside down in your cart, that's also a sign that you're available for swinging. I don't know if either one of those are true. I have not tested them, but
You should.
That's the rumor. I know.
You should test it.
Well, I sent you a picture that day when I was at Ralph's.
You did. You had that upside down pineapple.
I put a pineapple in my cart. I took a picture and I sent it to you. And then I immediately put the pineapple back and I couldn't stop laughing. And I just went to another part of the store. I was so... it was funny. But I should get brave enough to walk around and see what happens. Anyway, yesterday on KKLA 99.5, right. I got in my car to go to work. That station happened to be on, and they were in the middle of this discussion about swinging.
What time of day was this?
The morning drive.
Okay.
So apparently I didn't tune in quick enough to hear the actual question that they were presenting to callers, but I'm assuming the question was, if you are a swinger or a multiple partner sexual person, call in and tell us your story. I think that's what the setup was. So when I joined in, I heard these people calling in. There was people saying that there was 3 people, like one girl lived with her boyfriend and his best friend. And the 3 of them slept in the same bed, and they would just pass her back and forth. Another woman called in and said that she was married and she had a boyfriend, and the husband and the boyfriend were friends. And the DJ says, "Well, don't they get jealous?" She says, "No, actually, when one of them gets tired of me and I want to go out and do things, then the other one will go out and do stuff. And then the one that's behind can have quiet time." And they're like, "You're just too much to handle." So they were, having fun with it and saying she's too much to handle. And it takes 2, men to keep up with her. But there were all these stories about swingers. And then there was another story about a swinger that they had swung with multiple couples. And then the wife got an affection for this one man in this one, so they kind of became like a thing. So then it wasn't swinging anymore. It was more like a boyfriend in addition to her husband, and then these other couples. But it was fascinating to listen to the conversation, how we can just hop in bed with whomever.
Well, that's how society is.
That was fascinating to me. Like, because we don't have, which I think is part of the way that the sexual, the images and whatever is, we're just expected to give ourselves away. We're expected to share our bodies with everybody. We're expected to perform and to look good, and it's not a big deal to go around and be with multiple people and to let people have the most intimate parts of ourselves and do with it whatever, consume it however they want. That's fascinating to me, that we've come to that point where people say someone, is raped, or someone is a POW, prisoner of war, or someone is, kidnapped, and they can take away their clothes, they can steal their money, you can't take someone's identity. You can't take someone's ability to choose how they're going to deal with the situation, and your body is all that you have left. Of all the possessions in the world, our body, my naked body is mine. Like, that's all I have left. But if I don't share it, if I don't let people consume it for their own pleasure and gratification, now I'm a prude, and I'm a cold fish, and I'm, too conservative, and I'm whatever. I think that's fascinating, that people think that they have to give that part of themselves away in order to be accepted.
Well, society is full of double standard. Society is full of hypocrisy. That's just what we live in. So,
we talk out of both sides of our mouth.
Yeah, all the time. And so first off, you're going to sit there and you're going to say that we can't do this. We can't do, we shouldn't do this behavior. We shouldn't act this way. But then we're going to go and do it. Mm-hmm. Even though we're advocating we shouldn't. How many times have we seen that in different walks of life, whether it be politicians, whether it be religion, or whether it be anything? People are out there saying don't do, and then we find out they're the biggest offender of that.
Right.
The other thing too is, we want to have a public persona. We want people to think that we're a certain way because, again, I think it goes back to we want to fit in with the status quo, but then we want to do what we want to do. You know, we want to have our vices, we want to have our guilt, we want to have our sin, we want to have the things that we want to do. I know people, you know, just take alcohol. Like, I'll drink. I don't mind. I drink. Call me. We'll go out. And some people, you know, in certain circles, you know, drinking is bad. And so they like to drink, but they won't tell people.
Right.
Because they don't want other people to know that they like to go have a beer.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with a beer. Other people, you know, they'll sit there and they'll like to watch certain types of television shows, you know, maybe just half-hour comedy shows or something that might not be, you know, I like to watch Superstore. It's a complete waste of time of 30 minutes.
I've been on that show before.
Have
Did
you really?
you see me?
No,
Yes.
I didn't. I have to go back and watch it. But I like it because it's just 30 minutes of just
nonsense.
Yeah, and I like
fun.
it.
It's a fun show.
And so I watch it. But people are like, why do you waste your time? Well, because that's my 30 minutes I want to do. But people won't share things because they want their public life to be one thing and they want their personal life to be another thing. And then hypocrisy is just what it is. You know, we say one thing, we do one thing. And plus, I think, too, society in a whole, you know, we are taught that we have to have these standards, and it goes back to the box thing. We have these standards, we have these ways we're supposed to live our life, and yet we want to go outside of that, and so we kind of neglect those things that we want to do, and then next thing you know, it's like we're going overboard to try to compensate.
Right. Right.
You know?
And I think those standards, sexy seems to be part of the standard of the society, what society says a human is supposed to be.
Well, just take
part
shorts.
of the definition.
Take shorts, okay? Shorts used to be, I don't know, down at your knees, or skirts, remember, 2 inches above the knee, you know, dress codes.
Right.
Then all of a sudden now shorts have gotten shorter and shorter, and we've gotten to the point where, you know, we got girls with shorts where their butt cheeks are hanging out. Like 13, 12, 13-year-olds.
I know.
And
you
they got this 12, 13-year-old butt cheek hanging out.
You tell them not to do that, and they think that you're so old-fashioned and so not with the times, and they don't understand what it is that they're conveying. And you cannot convince these girls that that is not, that it's just not okay.
You know, tops, the tops get, the cuts get lower. You know, the boobs come out. I remember back when I think it was Clueless, the movie Clueless came out. I was a long-term sub at a junior high school, and when Clueless came out, everybody's wardrobe changed to fit. You know, the mini skirts with the high socks.
Yep.
I cannot tell you. It was 8th grade. It was 8th grade geography. I cannot tell you how many thong underwear that the girls would have riding up their back. You know, or like their boobs would be hanging out. I'm like, dude, you're like in 8th grade.
Right.
Why are you dressing this way?
Right.
You know, why can I see your thong?
Right.
Why, when you sit down in class and I'm sitting at my desk, I can see your crotch?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why are you dressing this way? And again, you know, where's the parents? First off, you know, when you got this 8th grade, what are you, like 14? You know, 15 in 8th grade. It's like, but people want to fit in. You know, the excuse is always everybody's doing it, therefore I want to do it because I want to fit in, because you can't live life on your own. You can't be a loner, because then you're a loser.
And I think the standard is that we part of the standard of arriving is sexy. That's part of the definition. There was a picture of was she a quadriplegic or paraplegic? I think she was a paraplegic. Beautiful girl. She was in an accident, and she posted a picture. This was several years ago. She posted a picture of herself in lingerie, sexy lingerie, and it was
after the accident.
After the accident, and it was a Victoria's Secret Playboy-ish aura to this picture. It was like a boudoir picture, you know, and you can go and have those lingerie pictures done. So it was very sexy, very provocative, and she posted this picture and said, "I just want to prove that I'm still." Just because I'm a paraplegic doesn't mean that I'm not a woman. And I thought, okay, how does this make sense? Because you're saying that, in her mind, I guess she was saying that she doesn't fit into this sexy image anymore. You know, and so she has to prove that she does by putting herself in a sexy image and then being judged in the sexy image. Like, you're putting yourself in the arena that you're complaining about and then asking them to accept you anyway. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But I felt bad for her because I thought, why would you have to put on lingerie and pose in this to prove your self-worth, in order to prove that you're okay even though you're a paraplegic? Like that. So we get so confused about where, you know, and then we have all these women on the internet and on YouTube that are saying I feel great about my body, and they're posting pictures of themselves in like a bra and underwear or a bathing suit or whatever, a sexy pose. But again, they're putting themselves into the arena that they feel that they don't belong in the first place, because all the magazine covers, all the people on TV have these like flat stomachs and great bodies, and they're, obviously, gorgeous. And so these women are saying, I'm gorgeous too. I have self-worth too, which is true. But then they're posing in the same pose and putting it into that arena saying, accept me too, even though I'm overweight, even though I have rolls, even though I'm not in shape or I'm not toned or whatever. That to me doesn't make sense. I don't understand why you would put yourself in that same arena. And I'm going to change the subject again, because now that we're talking about this, the bathing suit picture that I told you earlier.
Coming to Instagram soon.
No. Oh. So now I'm thinking like, okay, as we're sitting here talking, am I a hypocrite too? It's from the back. I'm sitting on the beach. You don't see my face or the front of me. It's just the back of me. But again, and I have a really cool message that goes along with it. But then am I being a hypocrite? I think
it's two things. One, first off, it goes back to, how do you define your self-worth? If you are looking for the attention through these pictures as your self-worth, then I think you're off base, because you need to define your self-worth as who you are and what you contribute to yourself in society, and value yourself as who you are. Now, that's not to say that if you're overweight, like I lost 55 pounds, last year because I wasn't happy with myself. People say, oh, are you conceited? Are you vain because you want to lose weight?
They said that?
No, I'm saying they could, because it's like, did you do that so you can look good? Well, no, I did it for health reasons, and because, I wanted to look better.
Right.
So the vanity, so to speak, is okay, because, we want to be our best. But for me, it was my decision to do it, and I lost the weight for me, not for anybody else. So what's your self-worth? So if you're comfortable and confident in the fact that you look good in a bikini or bathing suit or sexy lingerie, and you want to put it out there because you want to put it out there because we're all narcissistic, then that's fine. But if you're looking for your self-worth in that, I think that's where it becomes problematic. So, the one lady who had the accident that was posing, I'm like, okay, good for her, because she wants to do that. So, great. Take the pictures, put them out there. But I'm also saddened by the fact that that's where she's trying to find her self-worth.
Exactly.
And her self-worth isn't in the sexy pictures. Her self-worth is in the fact that she's a survivor, that she overcame her accident, and now she's starting to get to the point where she can become, like we've talked about with your friend Bob, right? Yeah. You're a normal person.
Right.
You just happen to have these disabilities, but you're a normal person.
Right.
And so it goes back to me, self-worth. So if you like the picture, and you're not finding your self-worth in that, and you just want to share it, because everybody wants, to like, hey, I look good. Sometimes I'll be in a tie and I'll post it on Instagram, and hey, it feels good for people to kind of, see the fact that I'm looking good in a tie, or I've lost weight. Hey, that's good. So we like that, because and plus I think goes to investing and sharing with other people. And being open, and being like an encouragement, and showing people that, hey, it's okay to do this in this environment. It's okay to be 50 plus and wear a bathing suit. It's okay to be in a wheelchair and have sexy pictures. It's okay to go after some of these things, because you don't have to define your situation, or your situation doesn't have to define you and limit you.
But I think if we're putting those pictures out in public and letting that definition come from other people, like you said, if you're getting your self-worth, right, and having other people define whether or not you're worthy based on the picture, that's where the problem comes. Right. So we'll see if I post that picture or not. I'm still debating on my Instagram.
DM her. Post it at Tara Hoke Shiro.
We will see.
Bombard her DM. Post it. Peer pressure. Next episode, peer pressure.
Right,
we peer pressure her into posting the picture. But no, I think in the end, as we kind of wrap things up, I think it's, as far as a halftime show, I don't think anything of it, because I just kind of expect those things to kind of happen in those environments. So I really didn't think anything of it. I thought Shakira did better than JLo. I thought they could have just had her only. But, good for them. They were able to do what they wanted to do, and they were able to perform. And, the fact that they're women, the fact that they're minority women, which I don't even know why we call people minority anymore. People are people. Again, we're defining people by self-worth.
Right.
Minority women performed. No, they were women that performed,
Right.
But good for them. But then two, I would say more importantly is that, we've got to take a look at things, from the perspective of, one, have character enough to stand alone if you need to against something. Have the character and the strength, even though it might be lonely and a lonely road, but to stand your ground in your belief system, whatever it might be. You know, if you like to swing and people like you shouldn't swing, but you want to swing, well, stand your ground and swing. If you think swinging's bad and everybody else is doing it, well, you know, don't do it. So stand your ground in whatever your belief is. 2, also know that there's going to be ramifications and consequences for what you do. So if you're swinging, you might end up with an unwanted pregnancy. You might end up with an unwanted sexual transmitted disease. You might end up with a broken heart. Who knows? And then 3, self-worth. Define your self-worth as to who you are and not what other people dictate. Sure, we want acceptance and we want approval and we want people to like us. That's just natural in our human beings' soul. But I think we need to define our self-worth first as who we are and be comfortable with what we are. And then some of the stuff we put out there, it's okay. But you gotta have, if you're looking for self-worth in other people to give that to you, then I think you've got a problem. I don't think you're going to find happiness or contentment. You got to be content and happy with yourself first, and then put that stuff out there just because you want to. And again, like I've always said, whenever you do something, whether it's a podcast or music show, whatever, do it for yourself. And not necessarily for everybody else. Do it for yourself first. Find pleasure in yourself because that's where you're going to find fulfillment. Do something for yourself. You want to post a picture? Don't do it because we peer pressure you. Do it because you want to do it. Because you find fulfillment and satisfaction in posting that picture. But that's what I'd say about it is just, find your own self-worth. And then after that, do what you want to do as long as you're not trying to get someone else's self-worth. Because then it goes back to the, you do things for someone else because you want their approval, and then you're not going to act in your best interest.
Right. Then we start doing things that are not authentic to us and are not natural to us, and we're looking for approval outside of ourselves. So, yes. So,
final thoughts. I'll give you final thoughts on this one.
That was a lot of final thoughts that you just gave. Final thought, and I would add to that we have to be brave enough and have enough character to allow other people, if there's somebody that is standing alone, and rather than attacking that person, be brave enough to accept the fact that they are taking a different thought pattern. Because a lot of times we feel threatened by people who stand up for something, and because we have to question ourselves, well, is what I'm thinking okay? If that person's going against it, then what does that mean about me? So we also have to be brave enough to allow people to have their own thoughts, their own opinions, and their own ideas without taking it personal, without getting all quirked up and feeling like we have to attack that person. So
2 Steps Ahead podcast, highlighting the shit we've been through so you don't have to. Instagram, where do they find you?
I am on Instagram at Tara Hoke Shiro, TaraHokeschiro.
You can find me at Edom Rocks, EIDEM ROCKS, Edom Rocks, and also at 2 Steps Ahead podcast. You can listen to the show on SoundCloud. Links are in the bios. You can also find us on IGTV at 2 Steps Ahead podcast. YouTube, just search 2 Steps Ahead podcast, and all the audio platforms like Pandora, Spotify, iHeartMedia. Just search 2 Steps Ahead podcast, and you will find us on the radio, on the internet, somewhere. Everywhere. And picture coming soon. Hey, you guys have a good one. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Do tell a friend, and do it for yourself. Let yourself be great. Take your passion, make it happen, and cut the yuck.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.